Who's going to finish higher, Liverpool or Arsenal? Harry is an Arsenal fan. Nubaid is a Liverpool fan. Let's debate. Harry, off you go.
I think Arsenal have built that momentum off the back of that victory over Liverpool, and it feels like things are starting to come into place. It's really important that they get Thomas Partey back. I know that they've been without him for most of the season, but I think he does add an extra 10% to this team, which could make all the difference. Should be back pretty soon from what we're hearing, which is massive. Arsenal have kind of been cruising along this season. They haven't really hit the heights that we saw last season, but equally, I think at times people have made them out to have regressed, and I don't think that's the case either. I think they've adopted a new style of play, and they now look like a side that want a bit more control. It's all a little bit less frantic, and I think over the course of a 38-game season, you will see the benefits of that, even if up until now they haven't looked quite as sharp.
You said momentum, and they ain't gonna like this. Do you feel like the emotion was a little bit too emotional after the Liverpool game?
No, because it's been missing all season. If you go back to last season, there were criticisms of Arsenal where people were saying they were too emotional. And although at the time I didn't want to hear it, when it all kind of unraveled at the end of the season, I looked back and I went, you know what, maybe we did get a bit carried away. Maybe everybody did get sucked into this this kind of idea of the emotion being all that's necessary to take you over the line. But I think this season that's been lacking. The atmosphere at the Emirates hasn't been anywhere near as good, generally speaking. But there've been the moments, but it hasn't been as good. And then you look at sort of some of the performances where, or games in which they've needed a late goal and it hasn't really come in the way that you might have expected it to last season. And I just think actually that is what is needed right now. A bit of that injected in is necessary.
I think it's a fine line, isn't it? The emotion thing. Moving it to Liverpool, expectation's a big thing as well. And I would wonder if the crowd is a bit duller this season because last season it was like, what is going on here? Could we? Whereas this season it's like, go on, like go and take that next step. For Liverpool, are they sort of in that Arsenal season where it had been such a low last season, and now this season there was a gentle hope of maybe giving it a go, but now with everything going on, is it one where Liverpool have got an outrageous amount of emotion that could be too much? Because generally Liverpool fans would suggest that that's a superpower.
Yeah, and I think that's where probably Arsenal and Liverpool are definitely different. So up until this point, evidence shows that Liverpool do get, or certainly Liverpool fans do get that extra couple of points from the fans, from that feeling. Whereas I would also agree with Harry that I thought last season they became too emotional and that's where the league went away. The weird thing at Liverpool at the moment is the first part of the season, it was like, woohoo, new midfield, let's see what's up. And now we're like, oh, wow, we're kind of in a race. And then Klopp's obviously announced he's going. And now it's like, we don't really know how to feel. Because like we're like, hopefully next week comes around a bit slower, so we have more of Klopp. But when next week comes around, we have to win the games because we want to win the title. And then Trent's come out and said we want to win the quadruple. And suddenly, like, it's like there was no pressure on us and no one was watching us. Now everyone's watching us and the pressure's on us tenfold. It's almost gone reverse of maybe how Liverpool and Klopp planned for it to go. So it's a fascinating, like, balancing act that Liverpool have found themselves in now.
You spoke about cruising, which is a good word. I think works for Arsenal. If you've got other gears to go into.
Yeah. Question
for you, and then a question for you, Nubaid. In terms of that cruising, do you think you have a couple of more gears to go to? And from Liverpool's point of view, have they got their foot down right now? Can they go to new heights as well between now and the end of the season? I'll start with you, Harry.
I think Arsenal do have another couple of gears to shift up into. It's whether they can make that happen or not that's going to make all the difference. Essentially, you look at the outputs of your Saka's, Martinelli's, Odegaard's last season, and you look at where they're at now, and they're not at that level. So there's evidence that they can do it. So I think it's fair to expect that there is a possibility of that happening. The emotional thing, I think, is something that can help Arsenal as well go up to that next level. We talk about emotions. On the pitch is one thing and off the pitch is another. And what you saw at the weekend was off the pitch. On the pitch, they were as cold as anything. The likes of Jorginho, Zinchenko in possession at certain points. I know Saliba made a mistake, but generally there was...
It was too cold.
Yeah. Generally there was a coldness about Arsenal that you saw in a big game for the first time in a while and went, oh, maybe that's something there that they can use. But there is an expectation that Arsenal go up to another level. And that expectation's been there all season. And the reason there was so much outpouring of emotion after the Liverpool game was because that felt like the boiling point where all of this stuff that had happened over the course of the season, and maybe you were sitting there thinking you're unsure, or the team have just come out and showed you that you should be sure of them, that you should back them. and you should fancy them to at least give it a go.
In game week 23.
What about Liverpool though? Because I think Liverpool, it feels like you are hitting heights now. The form felt really good, and then of course that defeat.
I actually disagree. I think for the most part, if you think back to the Fulham game where Liverpool won 4-3, I think for the most part this season Liverpool have sort of almost like cruise their way through games because they've got so much firepower going forward, and so at times Liverpool have been awful to watch, and then you give the ball to Trent and he plays a incredible crossing, and you've got so much firepower going forward. I think at some point during this second half of the season, it will click into place. And that's where I think this is where the league title race is fascinating. I think Arsenal have gears to go. I think Liverpool have gears to go. And I think City have gears to go as well. And so it's all about who can hit the gears at the right time and who can shift between them. Because there'll be games where you don't need to play at your best. Liverpool play Burnley at home. You probably don't need to be at your best for that game to get through it. But because they've lost, it might feel like they need to be. So I think Liverpool are in a nice place. And they get Salah back. Obviously, City got De Bruyne back. There was a lot of talk about that. So they're in a very nice place. Both teams are.